Are you working on your author career but struggling to get that first book published? Does the goal of being an author seem too lofty? Or thoughts of having multiple books and making a full-time living are as fantastical as living in Cinderella's castle? Welcome to Discovered Wordsmiths, a podcast where aspiring authors can be heard. Join Stephen Schneider as he finds and talks to authors you may not know, but authors that have gotten their foot on the author career path. Hear what they've done to get there and where they want to go now. Settle back. It's time for a bit of inspiration and advice. Come listen to today's Discovered Wordsmith.
So, all right, well, let's talk a little bit of publishing, author industry type stuff. So here we are, mid-December. We're like a week and a half away from Christmas. We got done with NaNoWriMo. So what's your thoughts? What's going on that you've seen? Any big news? It seems like things, I think Jay said it on one of his podcasts recently. It seems like the publishing industry is kind of a dumpster fire going on one spot after another. So what are you seeing? What are you thinking?
Yeah, it is sort of a dumpster fire. In fact, I think since the last time we spoke, I think the big lawsuit with the Department of Justice was dismissed,
Yes.
right? They said, not dismissed. I'm sorry. They told them that they could not merge. So Simon & Schuster and Penguin Random House could not merge.
Right.
Right. And at first they said they were going to appeal, and then the two publishing companies, or I think Penguin said, no, forget it. We're just not going to do it. Because I think they saw the writing on the wall that, if like they're just getting to be too big. I think they saw a political climate and just thought that it wasn't. I think they're still looking for a buyer, but it's just not going to be for Simon and Schuster. But it's just not going to be. It's just not going to be them. It's not going to be those two big ones. So I think that's big.
I've heard some rumblings, like Hachette has mentioned it. They were possibly looking, and I know different people have said who would be good, who wouldn't be. Do we want an investment firm that isn't really into books, as just trying to make money? Would that be good? Or, I don't know. It's really way over my pay grade.
Yeah, it's over mine too. I mean, I would like to see a non-book publisher. I would hate for them to just merge with another book publisher. Like, it would be nice if they were acquired by like some other media company, right? Like Netflix.
Right. Yeah.
Or, I mean, I don't want to say Amazon because Amazon's big enough already, but like that would be like, Amazon doesn't really do much in the way of print books. I mean, they do for their own publishing companies. They do have their own publishing companies where they do print, but I don't believe that the Amazon imprints are huge in that market. But I don't know. I'm not the expert in that.
D2D has been making a lot of strides and inroads in various areas. That would be an interesting if they, pulled that together. Google, they're trying to compete against the bigger boys. That would be interesting.
Is Google trying to compete?
Well,
because they could do it. Like,
yeah, that's true.
They could flip a switch probably, and they would probably be like, they have the Android market. Like, so they have so many e-readers already there, and they don't do anything really to promote their ebook platform.
They are making a few upgrades and changes. I've gotten some emails, new things. I mean, they just sent an email today about discounts for series bundles or something like that.
Oh, for sure. But I think only authors know about them. Like,
true.
Like, have you bought a book on Google Books?
I have, not recently. I've sold a few on Google Books. I don't really do any promotions or anything. It's that catch-22. Well, not enough people are on our platform buying and selling, so we're not going to do much, but nobody's on the platform, so why am I go sell? So, or they're not doing anything at the platform,
Yeah, I just think if anyone could do it, they have the biggest opportunity to do it. But I don't know that they're in the publishing business, right? So like in the publishing business, they're more in the bookstore business. So I would have, it would have been nice if they would have acquired Barnes and Noble and Waterstone back in the day, because they would have made like they could have merged all the ebook and the print book stuff into one smart bundle. But
things are just all up in the air, and it's kind of crazy. Maybe Spotify well, they bought the podcast stuff. Now maybe they're gonna want to move into something different. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. You never know. That would be interesting right there. Yeah. The other thing that's come up the last couple days is a lot of talk about bestseller lists.
Yes.
New York Times. So we've known for a long time the New York Times list is not like really like it's not really the bestseller list. It's the bestsellers that we want you to see list, right?
Right.
It's heavily curated, and I'm not going to say they judge, but they do judge. They're like, oh, that book is not worthy, right? And I can understand, like, to some degree, if they're making decisions. I don't have a problem with it being a curated list, but yeah, but it would be interesting to see that. So that one, but the other one is USA Today. So the USA Today list, the company that owns USA Today did a big bunch of layoffs, and one of the people that got laid off was the person who was in charge of the USA Today list.
Oh,
Yeah. And so authors noticed that last week's list never came out. So that was kind of a bummer for authors who were doing big pushes trying to make the list, right?
absolutely.
Because the USA Today list is really the one list left that indie authors have a shot at, because it is basically based on actual numbers sold in a variety of stores, and they have their rules and things like that. And yes, it
Like
can
the
be
People's Choice Awards.
yeah, exactly. So the USA Today list was the one left that you could get on your cover. You can get it and you could put on your cover that you were a USA best selling author. And that person was laid off. The USA Today said that they're going to start it up again in January, but the rumor has it that maybe they're not,
Oh,
so, and that's sort of a bummer. And it's mostly a bummer for the authors. Like, a lot of people are like, I don't know if you're into that sort of a scene, but there are like groups where people like band together to like do
right.
anthologies and collections and help each other promote, and so they can have their book make the list. And those things are like, so I hope they at least delay for a while, because I would hate for them to put their book out next week just trying to get that list, and there is no list. So that's tough. The other
Well,
thing that's
well, I
Go
was going to
ahead.
say real quick, I wonder how important that really is. I personally don't know anybody that like looks those lists up to see what's the bestseller so I can go get a book to read. Usually it's, oh, that book says it's a bestseller, so I'll buy that.
Mhm.
It's almost become such a big institution that just the trustworthiness of, oh, they're a bestseller. Well, that's the one I'll buy. And I would say Amazon bestseller is a better little award to get than the USA, because it shows up right there in the list when people search.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's two different things. There's, how is the list helpful? Right. So when your example is spot on. So Amazon's list, people are browsing Amazon and they see that list, they see the ranking, or they see the little flag that says the bestseller in a specific category, and they're like, oh, that must mean it's doing well. I'm going to more likely to check that out. So that seems pretty legit. But there are, and then the other aspect is, if you're in a physical bookstore, or maybe if you go to Barnes and Noble, something like that, there might be a link sometimes for bestsellers, right? Now on Barnes and Noble, it's probably their bestsellers.
Right.
But if you go into the store, there may be there may be like a stand that
Correct.
says, best selling books. And it doesn't always say, like, sometimes they'll have a sticker on it that says New York Times or USA Today. So that might be something there. But I mean, stores can still do that whether they're on the bestseller list or not. They can say their best selling list,
Yeah.
or or staff favorites or something like that. So I think that it's going to sort of change. It could even get like to be best reviewed. But okay, so that's one aspect. Here's the actual list itself. The other one is authors who want to say that they have been a best-selling author, putting that on, like, on the cover of other books, or putting that on their website. So it may or may not. I don't know how much it plays into a reader's decision, right? Like,
Right.
as an author, it doesn't really make my decision as an author who reads. It doesn't make that much of a decision for me because I know how it works. I know that, you know, it could be like 24 authors getting together to do this, and they're a best-selling author, but it was for an anthology that 20 people promoted, right? So that doesn't mean that their individual books are going to be
Right.
as popular, right?
Is that bestseller moniker as important, more important, or less important than having 6,000 reviews with a 4.3 average score? You know, in the buying public, which is actually making the more dramatic effect.
Yeah. And I think that's what you just said there is the biggest takeaway that authors, I think, should keep in mind, is that you need to know what makes you a legitimate author in your readers' eyes, right? So when my books get the little Amazon tag, I share it because my readers like that. And it's another way to share. They like, oh, wow, that's great that your book is #1 in, you know, diet and exercise or in fitness or something like that. In the grand scheme of things on Amazon, it's maybe not ranking that high, but in the categories that they're interested in, it's still ranking pretty high, and it's showing some legitimacy for the book at that time. So I think those kinds of things are pretty good, but I don't put Amazon bestseller in my author bio based on that, because it was like sort of like a flash in the pan. Now, if I hit #1 in the Amazon store, I might, because like #1 in the Amazon store is like #1 out of like how many millions and millions and millions of books.
Right.
So
And what you said, knowing your audience, that's important, because for me, I write middle grade. So the people reading my books are not the ones buying it. And parents can be very picky and want to feel good about what they're buying. So for me to say, hey, I'm a best-selling author, I won this award, that award, this award, that gives a sense of, oh, I can trust this book that I'm buying for my child. And for me, that seems like an important thing, because the parents they feel good about the purchase then. Even if it's the smallest award. And it's so stupid because I could go find plenty of awards where I pay $50 and, oh, I won the award for the month. Well, yeah, because I paid $50 to enter, and everybody wins. It's a participation ribbon is what it is. But parents don't even necessarily look that up or care. It's like, oh, he won an award. He's better than these other books. And I'll buy it, you know? So yes, what you said about knowing your audience and whether it really matters is important.
Yeah. I mean, if like, I think the Caldecott Award is like a big one for
that's a real one.
books,
yes,
right?
That's a real one.
So that would be like a really good one to get, but that's tough
Newbery.
because the Newbery. Yeah. So there's some good ones that you can get, but those are tough to get, right? But
which they should be.
Yeah, but I think that's a good example of, you know, like something that really matters, that parents may, or readers, the purchaser of the book may really value more than anything else, right? So for my books, they probably look at the number of reviews, those kinds of things, and then the editorial reviews that are there, you know, because I write health and fitness. So if I can get some like a medical doctor that approves of my book, that gives me sort of a stamp of approval. If I get like the head trainer for Planet Fitness, you know, I approve this book, then they're like, oh wow, so these people who know what they're doing agree with this book. So those kinds of things help for me way more than being a bestseller.
Right. And the same thing with like getting Kindle Unlimited. I don't imagine your books are the most popular book type of books being read in Kindle Unlimited. You know, it probably doesn't make as much sense for that. Whereas going wide, even if you're not selling a lot on Google or whatever, that probably makes more sense than Kindle Unlimited. But people get wrapped up in these authors are making so much money. Well, yeah, they're romance or fantasy authors. Yes, they're making lots of money on Kindle Unlimited, but not necessarily nonfiction fitness books.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I tried a little bit in KU, and like I got 10 page reads.
Right.
10 pages is what, like, it's forced. Thanks for the 4 cents, Amazon. But so like people in Kindle who read Kindle Unlimited aren't looking for health and fitness books, right? People who are reading my books, they want to buy the book. They want to own the book, the ebook, and sometimes they buy both. Sometimes they get the ebook and the print book. Because they want to read one and they're able to write in the other one, or take it, take notes and things like that, highlights, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah. So I think the big takeaway of this is, do the thing, try to get the things that your readers value
Right.
more than you value. And I see a lot of people who really try really hard to get this New York Times, well, that's really tough to get, but the USA Today list as almost like a stamp of approval. But to be honest, I don't know how many extra sales it gets.
Yeah, nobody's really done any studies that I've seen or been able to quantify what makes the difference necessarily.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Anything else before
those are the big ones. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, gosh, if I even bring up the words, the term AI, we're going to be here forever.
Yes.
Because like that is a big thing, both in the visual realm and also the ability to, people are using it to write things.
Yeah.
And for good and bad. But at this point, it's it's to some degree it's inevitable, but like I'm not really ready to jump into it. I played around a little bit with some of the images and stuff like that, but it didn't make a good cover. It's just made interesting art that you could therefore use on a cover, but I'm not going to use it on a cover. I have some artist friends that I'm going to use instead. And yeah, it's definitely interesting to see where it's going. A lot of controversy on the writing side as well.
Regardless of personal feelings or any of that, you got to say that from January to now, there has been a big burst of AI and there's tools and it's in the news more and more people are talking about it. So regardless of your feelings or what you want to do, it's really started to get into the consciousness a lot more in just the past couple months.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that, the one area where I saw writers using it to benefit that doesn't really seem to have an ethical or moral downside is using it to help brainstorm their way out of a stuck spot.
Yes.
Right. So they're not really using those words in their book, but they're like, oh, they're putting in some scenarios and they're getting scenarios back and they're going, oh, I hadn't thought of that. This is an interesting way. And they're getting themselves unstuck from like a writer's block perspective, which I think is the more tools we can have in that area, the better, I think.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
Don't copy it and paste it into your book because the stuff's not that good.
No,
not that good. No.
I did a programming thing, asked it, and it gave me the right and good answers, but it was basically just a copy of the website I had already referred to use, and the AI even skipped a couple things. So I was like, okay, well, it's still better for me to do my own research than to shortcut with the AI.
My friend Kirsten typed in a little thing. She shared it as a reel she writes romantic comedies. So she said, tell me a Christmas romantic comedy, robot. And the AI wrote a little story, but featured the robot itself in the story. Like, so I think because she said comma robot, right?
Oh yeah.
So like, so it, it's like, so the person fell in love with the robot and the robot fell in love with the person and they had a happy little life despite the controversy of it's not even interracial or interspecies or whatever. It's like, human and robot
right,
dating.
Yeah.
Like people are looking at us. Do we care? Like all that kind of stuff. So it was interesting how it really did that.
Well, Hallmark hasn't done that for a movie. So there you go.
That's true.
And Jay Thorne asked the AI with all the AI stuff, what he could do to make money. And it told him he should write books. Okay.
That's good. Great idea.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good job, robot.
Yeah.
They're not taking over anytime soon.
No.
Unless this is all a trick to make us think that they're not as good as they really are.
Right. You're assuming I'm real. I mean, we've not been in the same room together. So
that's true. That's true. It's like a Max Headroom, but without all the jerky, without all the jerkiness. Yeah.
I heard they're remaking that. So
I heard that too. I can't wait. I love that show.
Yeah. Good show.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, hey, I appreciate the time. I wish you the happy holidays and enjoy the weather.
Merry Christmas and enjoy your snow.
Yes, I will. I love snow. I'm a December baby, so I love snow.
Oh, nice, nice. I'm a May baby, and so I'm gonna enjoy going to the beach this afternoon.
I used to do that out there. I spent a couple nice holidays on a beach, but I still love my snow.
I can imagine. Sounds
Yep.
good. All
All right,
right.
man. Thank you. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you later.
Bye, everybody.
Uh, Before we get to our topic of playfulness and seriousness, do you have any favorite software or services that you like to use?
Yeah, and this is going to sound a little bit strange because writers love to talk about, this fancy thing and that fancy thing. Um, I use one of the free Microsoft Word knockoffs. Office, LibreOffice,
Open Office, maybe.
Open, one of those. Um, and that's fine. Um, I also use a lot of spreadsheets. So Excel, or a cheap knockoff, a free knockoff thereof. Um, that's how I organize my writing, and occasionally I'll use index cards and graph paper and so forth. And for each book, as I'm writing it, I have one file that has the book. I have one file that has um, odds and ends. Scenes that occur to me that I want to write down, but I'm not there in the book yet, so I put them in this other file. And when I get to that point, I can cut and paste them in. I have various kinds of outlines. I don't outline prescriptively. It's not like I write up an outline and then follow it. I write up outlines in order to figure out what I'm thinking.
Okay.
And then I go and write something else, So there'll be outlines and often files that include backstories for characters, world building notes, all kinds of stuff like that, research notes for whatever research I'm doing. And then the Excel files, um, like I might have characters' names across the top, years across the side, and then what each character is doing at each year, so that I can look across and say, okay, it's 2000, whatever, where is everybody? And things like that, keep me organized. So it's a lot of files on two very, very sort of normal programs.
Got it. Okay, that sounds great. And I like that you're using Open Office and Libre because I work with kids and I talk to parents and recommend those. I'm like, you don't have to pay for Microsoft or whatever. They work just fine. So
They
I
do.
like that. So
Yeah.
you've written two books. You're working on a third. What are some things you've learned that you're doing differently?
Uh, between now and the first book, the importance of having an elevator speech. And
Okay, nice.
an
Why?
elevator speech, I don't know if you're familiar with the term, not everybody is. It's the way you explain what you're doing to somebody you bumped into on an elevator. So it's like the 20-second version, the 20-second long version of the. And my first book doesn't have an elevator speech. I didn't know it was important to have one. And the thing is impossible to describe succinctly, It's, I mean, I don't want to badmouth my own book. But it's kind of sprawling, it's got a lot going on in it, and there's no simple way to summarize all of it. And that made when I went into doing revisions and editing, that made it harder. Because, if I can't explain it to somebody quick, I can't explain it to me quick either. And it just made it a lot harder. So since then, one of the first things I do, say, okay, what's this book's elevator speech? And it makes writing easier, not just, it makes marketing easier, but it makes the writing easier too. So that's a biggie.
Right. Okay. And what are you doing to market your book?
Not enough. Uh,
Podcasts.
you know, Trekkies will recognize this phrase. Darn it, I'm a writer, not a marketer.
Right.
Uh, but talking about it on podcasts. I'm trying to learn how to do uh, ads on Facebook. Uh, I did a series of library talks. That worked pretty well. Um, what I would love to do is I would love to hire somebody to take care of this for me, somebody who actually knows what they're doing and they have a brain that can, it's just their cup of tea, their thing. They're good at it. I don't have the money. So if anybody works on commission for this sort of thing, I can offer you a percentage. Come on over. I do have a marketing assistant, and he kind of helps keep me organized and focused. And he is wonderful. If you want to hire him, get in touch with me, and I'll send you the link to his work. Uh,
Nice.
for what he does, he is wonderful.
Good. Okay. All right. So our topic that we're going to have a little discussion on is playfulness and seriousness, which I kind of like. And I love the fact that you're a scientist. So people have this stereotype vision of, the serious scientist in the white lab coat or all the time, which probably doesn't fit when you're talking about ecology and conservation because you're probably outside more than in a lab. So why did you choose this topic and why does it apply to authors?
Well, first of all, when it comes to ecology, don't picture white lab coats, picture jeans and flannel.
And waiter boots sometimes.
Yeah. Nice pair of sneakers. Anyway, I'm part of all of these writers groups on Facebook. And you think you post a question and 10 zillion people jump on and answer. And, I think it's really useful. And I notice what kinds of questions keep coming up, especially from the really new writers, people who haven't published before or haven't published very much, and they're just really trying to find their feet. Or people wanting to figure out how to help their kids, hey, my 10-year-old daughter wants to write a book, and how do I help her? And a lot of them get this an important thing backwards. They're talking about getting a literary agent for a 10-year-old or trying to figure out what genre to write in based on what's marketable or, how to do formatting and stuff. And, no, that's the wrong kind of serious. And then they don't do the right kind of serious because these people, a lot of them, they're not hiring editors. They're not hiring writing teachers. They post cover images to get feedback on them. And these things were obviously put together like in Photoshop or something.
But
Like
by a
they're not
serial killer
professional.
doing mashup work.
Yeah, and that's the wrong kind of playful. It's not even playful. It's the wrong kind of not serious. Uh, the thing is, for people who are just starting writing, and I mean everybody who's writing actually, but especially for people just starting, it's really important to give yourself time to be a kid. I mean, even if you're 67, the great thing about being a kid, or about being some kids anyway, is that a lot of children, they understand that they're not turning out adult work. When a kid, I'm going to write a book, and they get the construction paper and the stapler and crayons. I have a niece who does this. they know this is not going to be on the New York Times bestseller list. They're not looking for an agent. They they know this is not what adults mean when they mean writing and publishing a book. But they do their best. And they're proud of it. And they come, Aunt Caroline, I wrote a book. You did. That's awesome. That's amazing. That's so cool. And you have to do that. No matter how old you are, you have to give yourself time to play, to do the best that you possibly can, and not care whether it's good enough. Who cares whether it's good enough?
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Agreed.
What
Agreed.
matters is you're having a good time in your learning. That's what's important. Figure out if it's marketable later. Figure out if you're going to publish it later. A lot of people write like 5 or 6 books before they get around to one that's publishable. And that's okay. You don't have to publish to be a writer. You just have to write.
Right.
And so that's what I mean by playfulness. And then the serious side of the coin is you have to approach it like a professional if you're going to be a professional. If you don't want to be a professional, that's fine. You don't have to be. But if you want to publish, it has to look good. It has to meet certain standards. You have to hire an editor. I don't care if you are an editor. You have to hire one. Everybody is better if they have an editor other than themselves looking for work. And you have to be able to not take it too personally. You have to be able to let editors say, okay, this is not good enough.
Right. Yeah.
If you take that as I'm not good enough, you're not going to be a professional writer. You have to get to the point where somebody can say, your book isn't good enough. And I mean, it kind of hurts to hear that, but you get over that and you go, oh, thank you for telling me. Now I can figure out how to make it better.
Right. Yep. And what you mentioned about kids, I'm working with kids. I want to help show that kids can write and not necessarily be published, but they get the practice in, they get the experience in. So when they're adults, they're like, I know I can write. It's time to be serious about it. And I think part of what I also try and do in my own writing is show that there's still magic in the world and that kids know that magic, but we lose it as an adult. And as a writer, we need to recapture that sometimes. I'm sitting here watching the snow and I'm fascinated by it. I love the snow. That's magical to me. And adults miss that. They just get grumpy and it's cold and they, but look around at the world. It's fun. I'm going to bet some of your playfulness is taking your dogs out into the leaves, the snow for a walk and things like that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Oh, no. I would agree with that, but I would disagree with something else.
Okay.
Everybody says that kids have this sense of magic that adults don't. And I remember being a kid. And I remember I had a sense of magic in some ways. But I was also, way too serious about way too much and took way too many things far too literally. And the kids around me, oh my gosh, I was constantly being mistreated by other kids who just did not have much of a sense of much, really. And, kids have a sense of magic because they don't know any better. They don't really know what's real and what's not and what's possible and what's not. So you give them an idea like, hey, Santa Claus and flying reindeer. And like, okay, why not? It's not any weirder than anything else I've been learning about the world,
Right.
And things are new and they're less self-conscious. So I remember one time a friend of mine and I and her baby daughter we went to the mall just before Christmas and we walked into, this area that's all decorated for the holidays. And me and the baby simultaneously said, wow. There's definitely that. But you get older, you grow up, and yet some people, they don't turn into grown-ups, they turn into grumps. And that's not good. Do not do that.
That's my son. He's 22, and we tell him he's a 75-year-old man.
Yeah, I just, don't do that. You don't have to do that. It's just not fun. But you get older, that's not the only way to grow up. The other way to grow up is you learn not to take yourself too seriously.
Right,
You
exactly.
learn that when you're a kid, if something goes wrong, you don't know that it's going to go right later because you don't have the experience. You haven't had time. You get to be my age. I've had days that just sucked. They're just awful. How can it ever get any better than this? And it does. So I know that now. It'll
Right,
get better. It'll
right.
be fine, really. You get to learn, you have choices about how you're going to react to things. It's snowing. Okay, well, I could be upset about this because I have to drive in this stuff, but it's really pretty, and I can choose which one I'm going to focus on.
I agree.
And you learn about metaphor, and you learn about mystery, and you learn about paradox, and things that don't make sense, but they're actually real. And you can, and that's where the sense of magic comes. That's where the real sense of magic comes.
Paradox. That's from the Christmas special of Doctor Who, right? Paradox. Sorry, bad
Yeah.
joke. So, what are some things that you would recommend writers do to gain some playfulness?
I don't know. You remember the old quote, there is no way to peace, peace is the way? I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
it's like that. There's no way to playfulness. Playfulness is the way.
Okay.
Hanging out with other playful people might help. To sort of get the juices going. But just try it. One phrase that really helps me when I'm writing is it's okay to write badly. It really is. I mean, you want to fix it before you publish it, but it's okay to write badly. Just give yourself permission. This is going to suck. I'm going to write it anyway.
Nice. Yeah, agreed. All right. So to finish up here, Carolyn, what would be your last minute advice for new authors?
Ask specific questions.
Okay.
I
Why?
mean, because generic advice that you think will apply to everybody doesn't always. And if you're not ready, if a piece of advice isn't the piece that you need right now, it's not going to be useful anyway, even if it will be useful later. If you're not ready to hear something, you're not really going to hear it. But when you're writing along and you get stuck, like, okay, I don't know how to do this. When you get stuck, that's when you go to an established writer or an editor or a teacher or somebody who likes to read a lot, and you say, okay, here I'm stuck, I don't know what to do, and they can tell you, okay, here is the next step, and you take the next step and you get unstuck and you go. And that's how you make progress. So you don't look for generic advice it's going to apply to everybody. Start writing, and when you get stuck, ask somebody. You can ask me. My contact information is on my website. Shoot me an email. It's
Carolyn's Get Out of Stuck Writing service. So we'll get everybody flooding you.
I wouldn't mind.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, Carolyn, I appreciate you. This was a nice last minute thing. I'm glad you found the podcast and got you on. It was great talking to you. I hope your book does well. It sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
All right.
Hi, if you enjoyed this episode of Discovered Wordsmiths, please support the author. Go to their website, go to Amazon, look them up, get the book. And if you click on the link that I have in the show notes, you'll also help support the podcast so I can keep the hosting and all the software I use and keep it running to help more authors. When I am recording this, we've got over 100 episodes, lots of authors. Go to the website, discoveredwordsmiths.com. check it out. There's a lot of great authors, probably in some genre that you love. See what they have. Check out their books. That's what the point of the podcast is for. So people can discover new authors, find some new books they love, support the authors so they can continue writing. So please support them. And if you do like the podcast, if you've been thinking of podcasting or you're a writer, I've got some links also at the website. Click on those if you're interested in any of the software or services that I talk about. Everything that I have there is something I use, so I've got an affiliate link. Again, it's a little bit, if everyone clicked on those, if they were going to get it anyway, it helps keep the podcast going. So let's all help each other out and discover more authors to read.
Thank you for listening to Discovered Wordsmiths. Come back next week and listen to another author discuss the road they've traveled, and maybe, sometime in the near future, it might be you.